The journey of a dreamer. Imagine a man who, from his youth, dreams of fantastical worlds. This man is Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of the legendary Final Fantasy series. Have you ever wondered how a simple dream could create such a monumental saga, starting from nothing? Sit back, because today I'm going to tell you the fascinating story of a man who changed the face of gaming by following his instincts and passions. Sakaguchi was born in 1962 in Hitachi, a small seaside town in Japan. Growing up in a place surrounded by nature had a profound influence on Sakaguchi. As a child, he was fascinated by the ocean, spending long hours watching the waves. This image of the waves would later become a metaphor for him, a symbol of freedom and balance, one that would even influence his lifestyle later on. But growing up in a small town also meant being far from the capital, far from the major gaming companies that were beginning to emerge in Japan. Tokyo was a place of ambition, where young visionaries gathered to explore the future of technology. For Sakaguchi, the distance made these dreams seem almost unattainable. He pursued engineering studies not out of passion, but out of necessity. Yet, despite the structure and rigidity of his studies, he felt an emptiness, a yearning for something more, a need to tell stories. While in university, Sakaguchi came across a small company called Square, which was making video games. It was a time when the video game industry was still in its infancy, and most people saw gaming as nothing more than a fad. At the time, no one could have imagined that this startup would one day reach the pinnacle of the industry, least of all Sakaguchi. But something caught his attention. Square was different, more free, more creative, a place where he could finally unleash his imagination. Imagine being young and deciding to give up everything for an uncertain dream. That's exactly what Sakaguchi did. He quit his studies to join Square, hoping to prove himself and create games that would make an impact. It was not an easy decision. Imagine the pressure of telling your family that you're abandoning your degree to pursue video games, something that, at the time, had no guarantee of stability or recognition. The first few years were not easy, far from it. The company was small, resources were limited, and the market was highly competitive. Sakaguchi worked on various projects, from racing games to basic action titles, but none of them truly satisfied him. He craved something deeper, a story that would resonate with players on an emotional level. He and his team produced several games, but none were successful. Square began facing serious financial difficulties, and the future seemed uncertain. With mounting debts and failed projects, Square was on the brink of closing its doors. Sakaguchi knew he only had one last chance, a final project to show what he was capable of, and perhaps even save the company. And that's when the idea for Final Fantasy took shape. The name was more than just a title. It symbolized an ultimate hope, a wild dream to create something memorable, a last chance for Square and for himself. Imagine a team of young talents, united around a common dream, working day and night to achieve what seemed impossible. Sakaguchi surrounded himself with passionate people, including composer Nobuo Uematsu, who composed music for every scene, every moment of the game. These melodies would mark entire generations of players and become some of the most iconic pieces in gaming history. The creative process was grueling. They worked tirelessly, often without sleep, with limited resources, battling the constraints of time and budget. The team was small, but the passion was immense. Each member believed that this could be their moment to create something that would last, something that would set them apart. Sakaguchi put his heart and soul into it, and what emerged was more than just a video game. Final Fantasy became an epic. It is said that he would reread every script, every dialogue, to ensure that each word resonated and transported players into this magical universe. The game's success can also be attributed to its incredible storytelling. Unlike most games of that era, which focused solely on gameplay mechanics, Final Fantasy brought players an intricate narrative, rich characters, and an emotional depth that was rare at the time. Imagine, in an era of simple 8-bit graphics, trying to convey a grand, sweeping story of magic, kingdoms, and the eternal battle between good and evil. The challenges were enormous, but the team made it work. Imagine seeing your dream come true before your eyes. Final Fantasy became an incredible success, propelling Square to the forefront of the industry. Suddenly, Square went from being a struggling startup to a major player in the gaming world. But for Sakaguchi, this success was both a blessing and a burden. The pressure mounted with each new installment, and the expectations from fans were immense. He was no longer creating in a vacuum. He now had millions of people eagerly awaiting his next move. Sakaguchi was a perfectionist. He wanted each game to be better than the last, for each story to be deeper, more moving. During the creation of Final Fantasy VII, a turning point for the franchise, he decided to push even further. This time, the ambition was bigger than ever before. The technology was advancing, and Sakaguchi wanted to take full advantage of it. The graphics moved to 3D, and the themes grew darker, exploring loss, loneliness, and the search for meaning. Final Fantasy VII was not just a game, it was a cultural phenomenon. What made this period even more poignant was that it coincided with a personal loss for Sakaguchi, the death of his mother. This tragedy deeply affected him, and he channeled that pain into the game. The iconic scene of Aeris's death, one of the most emotional moments in Final Fantasy VII, is, in fact, a sort of tribute to his mother. This scene left a mark on millions of players, becoming one of the most iconic moments in gaming history. Sakaguchi expressed his grief through his work, and that is what made the game so authentic, so moving. The challenges of creating a game like Final Fantasy VII were immense. The shift to 3D graphics was a huge risk, and many within Square were unsure if it would pay off. But Sakaguchi believed in pushing boundaries, in exploring new territories, much like how he explored the ocean waves as a child. The end result was a masterpiece that broke sales records and earned a place in gaming history. Imagine a video game creator who finds his inspiration in the waves. Yes, Hironobu Sakaguchi is passionate about surfing, and it's on the beaches of Hawaii that he finds his balance. He talks about surfing as if it were a dance with nature, a way to find equilibrium in a world full of chaos. Surfing became his escape, his way to clear his mind and come back to his projects with renewed energy. At every opportunity, he leaves his office to go surfing, away from stress and obligations. For him, surfing is much more than a hobby. It's a way to reconnect with himself, to find inner balance. He often describes this activity as a source of inspiration, a moment of pure freedom. To him, life is a bit like a wave. You have to adapt, stay flexible, and not resist changes. This passion influences his creations. He often compares the creative process to surfing. You have to follow the current, adapt to external forces, but above all, never lose your rhythm. This philosophy is evident in the themes of his games, which often explore resilience, the quest for self, and escape. His experiences with surfing gave him a unique perspective that he applied to the way he managed his creative teams. He encouraged his colleagues to be flexible, to ride the momentum, and to always stay true to the creative flow, even when challenges seemed insurmountable. In 2004, after years at Square, Sakaguchi decided to take another turn. The gaming industry was evolving rapidly, and he felt it was time for a change. He left Square Enix to found his own studio, Mistwalker. The name, evoking mystery and exploration, represents everything Sakaguchi seeks in creation: total freedom, away from commercial constraints. With Mistwalker, he no longer aimed to create commercial hits, but more personal works such as Lost Odyssey and The Last Story, where he explored deep themes like memory, loss, and the search for meaning. Starting Mistwalker was both liberating and challenging. Sakaguchi was no longer bound by the corporate expectations of Square Enix, but he also faced the uncertainty of building something new from the ground up. He focused on storytelling, going deeper into character development and emotional experiences. Lost Odyssey, for example, tells the story of an immortal character, Kame, who carries centuries of memories, sorrows, and joys. It's a kind of introspective journey, a reflection on the weight of memory and the strength of resilience themes that deeply resonate with Sakaguchi. Mistwalker also gave Sakaguchi the opportunity to mentor new talents. He worked with younger developers, sharing his experiences, his successes, and his failures. He wanted to foster a new generation of creators who were not afraid to take risks, who understood that games could be powerful storytelling mediums. For Sakaguchi, Mistwalker was more than just a studio, it was a place where creativity could flourish without limits. Conclusion: the wisdom of a man who follows his passions. Today, Hironobu Sakaguchi splits his time between Japan and Hawaii, between the waves and his projects. He continues to create, but he also lives to enjoy the simple things, away from the spotlight.